All right, thank you everyone for being here today. This was the Monday meeting of the House Judiciary Committee. We've got two matters on. I want to take the first one, which should be a quick matter because there's only be a hearing by the committee, and that's on SB 255, which is our garnishment bill. It's been held in committee for a while. We're going to take a discussion. First, a motion on it. Chair will entertain a motion. Motion is due pass. We have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? There being none, you have, I'm sorry, didn't you? Excuse me, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, we had talked about moving the 24 hours to 10 days. Are you okay with that amendment?
We are not. I'll tell you the reason why we're not okay with it is because we have, and you back up on me on this for a second, the federal rules that deal with the issue, and I'm looking at the 78 Federal Rule 32099, and providing steps for financial institutions must take upon receiving a garnishment order, and within 2 days of receiving the garnishment order of the financial institution must, and it goes through the steps, which is make the determination and set aside the funds. So we are wanting to comply with federal law. We had a very lengthy review and discussion of this by the committee that worked on it for about 4 months, and this is one of the major issues. I recognize there's a portion of the bar that favors to have an extension, but certainly 10 days would not be acceptable. What this calls for is 2 business days. I would be open to the 2 business days, but not beyond that for any change.
So, Mr. Chairman, we would be violating some kind of federal rule if we went to 10 days instead of 24 hours? It's a federal rule
that pertains to the bank's actions on garnishment. Cited as 78 Federal Rules 32099.
Was this federal rule around before the case that brought this necessary change?
This was effective May 1st, 2011. It did come in before. It was not something addressed specifically in the Strickland decision, but it is a matter that we're addressing as far as the rewrite of the garnishment law.
Well, I guess my question, Mr. Chairman, I'll just show my ignorance, is if it's preventing us from going from 24 hours to 10 days now, why didn't it stop our statute that was at 30 days earlier?
Well, as I said, it's a federal rule addressing to banks, not addressed to the states. We're acknowledging this rule in the rewrite of our statute, which we've been involved in since, say, back in September. Anybody else have something to speak on, Mr. Powell?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Since I don't have the benefit of having in front of me what you have, but I thought what you said was that you had 2 business days to ascertain.
All right, I'll go through the whole thing. Receiving the garnishment order, the financial institution must, use the term must, 1, determine whether the garnishment order is subject to this rule, i.e. who the plaintiff that obtained the order is. 2, conduct an account reviews accordingly and determine whether notice is necessary, which it would be under our law. And 3, assess a garnishment fee where available. B, the financial institution shall send the notice to the account holder within 3 business days from the date of account review. And 4, gives the effective date of May 1st. And that's perhaps the way you're reading it. We say review this as a part of what we were doing with the redraft of the law. We had the banks, they're here now, nobody taking testimony, but the banks were very strong with the feeling what you have is a garnishment's filed, the banks receive it, and under the current law they have to wait for a period of time of 20 days in which to, before they can actually make a filing with the court. In fact, what they say, we receive the garnishment. the point we're making with the 24 hours, they look at the account, there are funds in that account, go ahead and proceed with having that filed with the court rather than having this thing remain open and having to be monitored by the bank for upwards to 20 days before they do anything further. So what they have a problem with, of course, is the monitoring of it on a continuous basis for that 20 days. We also, of course, under the court's decision, you have the need of getting notice immediately to the defendant debtor, and that person, if they're making a claim as to those funds, for whatever reason, they need to do that under a strict timeline. So the idea is to have those funds in the court for the court to make a consideration of what may be the basis for the claim and whether it's a viable claim or not. Is there anything further? If not, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this discussion that we just had about this rule, did this rule get brought up in all the hearings y'all had last year to begin to prepare this bill?
Yes, sir. We discussed it during the advisory committee's work.
And at that time, the conclusion was that we'd be in violation of that rule if we had anything over 24 hours?
We were two things, complying with the rule and also complying with the requirements we felt in the Strickland, which was to get the funds in the court so the court could have consideration of any claims that would be made under the limitation time-wise that we have for filing of claims. Do you have a question over here, Ms. Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there a possibility, I wasn't aware of the federal rule. It's been a long time since I've done a garnishment. My understanding was that the bank gets the garnishment, they immediately freeze the account. They don't have to do anything with it at that point, but they do need to freeze it and hold it. But with the federal rule, with 2 business days, with us making it 24 hours, are we going to put ourselves in a situation where we're out of compliance with the federal rule because we're making banks decide in 24 hours, whereas the federal rules give them 2 days?
No, we're not. We're not out of compliance. We're just saying earlier that this was reviewed. It was the wishes of the bank that like to go ahead and get it resolved rather than having to monitor these accounts over an extended period of time, that they have the funds in hand, that they'd be able to go ahead and file and make a report in the court. The chairs will go ahead and call the question at this time. We've had discussions for several times on this. Do we have a motion, I think, and a second on it? We have an amendment. Chair will entertain the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, on lines 99, lines 1179, lines 1186, and lines 1648, I would move to change the term 24 hours to 10 days.
Been moved and seconded. What's that? She didn't get it.
On lines 99, lines 1179, lines 1186, and lines 1648, change the term 24 hours to 10 days.
Was there a second on that? Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, the chair will call the question, which is a amendment to Senate Bill 255. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. One no. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, along those lines of that amendment, and I guess this may be directed to legislative council, when we change those from 24 hours to 10 days, does that institute a need to change for days in other parts of the bill? I haven't.
Yeah.
Some places where I think that would be the case, but I was going to ask for clarification on that.
All things. We've got a bunch of things all relating around. Representative, let me finish, sir, please. Relating around to those dates are a number of things within the bill that are relative to the timing and filing of answers of parties as well as the payment of the funds in the court. That's why I've been kind of strong about not wanting to see this changed as a practical matter. If they want to come in later and have have a bill in 2017 that makes a change, then that would be a chance to review it with all the other things to be done as far as potential changes. That's why, let me finish, please, sir, please. I'll talk for you.
I apologize.
And that's what we went through for some time. And I brought the bill back from rules because I knew there was a group of individuals speaking to the chairman without going through the appropriate, I think, standards of having a conversation with me as chair of the committee, out of which this came, as well as working with the advisory committee to put together this bill. We do have a number of things within the bill that are going to be affected by this proposed change. Press your button, I'll recognize you.
And Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I didn't realize you were finished. I was just trying to make sure you understood that I have the places, I believe, which that change that we just adopted will make those changes, and I'll make them in the form of amendment. And I'll also tell you, had I known that we were going to have this bill on today, I would have come talk to you beforehand and talked all that through with you. I didn't realize it was going to be on the agenda today. So
Till 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and I was in that subcommittee.
And you
before
got
this, so.
You, as well as everyone else, received the notice as soon as I sent word down 11 o'clock to put it on today.
And I apologize, I didn't see it. I was focused on other things. But my second amendment, if the chair would entertain it, to effectuate those changes that we just made.
I think we just better go ahead and table it until we have a chance to look at it with all those necessary changes. I don't say you don't know what you're talking about as far as the places in the bill. There's a number of places, and I don't know at the time I'm sitting here that there will be other places. So I'm going to suspend any further consideration on the bill until we have a chance to review it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Senate Bill 3, Senator Unnerman. Would you like to come forward, please, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I bring before you Senate Bill 3 as a substitute that has gone through your very capable committee.
Let me suggest, before we started, we'll be looking at LC 297104 ERS. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's the latest draft. All right.
This particular bill has gone through 2 subcommittee hearings, and I'd like to say thank you to Representative Fleming and Representative Quick, who have perfected the bill, I think, with questions that were raised by different segments of the community that helps to take care of children. And I feel like we have addressed all of the main issues. The one issue that was brought up was there was a reference in the subcommittee to the federal acronym of taking care of children, No Child Left Behind. So we looked up, and it's on line 111 on page 4, what is the correct replacement for No Child Left Behind, and it's called Every Student Succeeds Act, and that is capital P, capital L, 114-95, and that's the correct reference for that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I think we've done a pretty good job addressing some of the issues about military families, about schooling, about athletics. The line kind of goes on and on and on. Money following the child when we have custody cases, and we have rights to the child and the money. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'm not
All right.
sure if all the full committee is abreast of the information in the new substitute.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a question from Mr. Bennett. Oh, Ms. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator. I'm not asking you to go line by line, but I wasn't in the subcommittee. If you could just tell us what the bill does generally.
The bill allows a power of attorney to be granted for children who have extenuating circumstances. We got into the issue of if a child is living at home with a mother, and the mother unfortunately goes into like an addiction program, they're going to be gone for 3 months, but yet her best friend lives right down the street. She would have the ability to give her best friend a power of attorney to be able to take care of her child, and that would cover circumstances like being able to get medical care, whether they had to go to the hospital, they had to go get their vaccinations or whatever. That power of attorney would be complete, and also so that the child could stay in the same school system and they would have power of attorney to make education decisions, to interface with the teachers and to represent that mother while she was away. So we've done extensive work. This is a bill that was brought before last year before this committee. Unfortunately, it didn't pass. I've met with Superior Court judges who had interest in it because of divorce cases and custody, and if a child is in custody, making sure that the money follows the child where the child goes if the child is taken care of. So we have done a tremendous amount of work through the subcommittee, and I think a lot of the issues have been addressed. This bill has been attached in the Senate to several House members' bills, and my intention is to use the bill that's come through this committee and conference committee and remove the language that was put in, because we've had several reiterations of this bill, and I'm committed that whatever bill comes through the Judiciary Committee will be the bill that will be in conference committee and hopefully get a final approval.
Further question, Ms. Evans?
No.
And that power of attorney is listed in there. I've had to fill it out and everything. I just appreciate everyone really has a strong interest in this, and the Superior Court judges help, the DFAC's offices help, and of course these are children that I would consider them at risk, because if someone doesn't take care of them, they potentially could go into the foster care system. But these are kids that have never been in trouble, and they've never interfaced with DFACs before. If you have a current record, this would not be applicable for that particular child if you had a record.
I'm sorry, they have those mics on, excuse me. I also want to recognize the work Ms. Travis did. She has a lot of help and work went into perfecting what we have before us as a bill.
She has, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And she's very good expert at it. And those Superior Court judges did a good job, too, bringing up things that we didn't think
Thank you.
about.
I haven't had a chance to recognize, but we've got Judge Gosselin from our Hall County Northeastern Circuit. Glad to have you with us today, Judge Gosselin. Any other judges in the audience? I don't remember seeing anyone. Sometimes they're hiding behind our big pole here. All right, thank you. Any other questions of Senator Onderman? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, excuse me.
We've talked about this. You know, I do a lot of probate court work, and I'm still trying to figure out, and I apologize for not researching this since our last subcommittee, that lines 70 through 84 in relation to a power of attorney being used to admit a child to any public school.
Right.
That does replace the existing probate court statutory provision used in my county and maybe others in relation to school systems' method of protecting itself on overcrowded schools for children's enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
That's your intent to...
Well, I think one of the questions that was brought up was the question of overcrowding and residency requirements. We addressed the athletes so that you don't have a great athlete and, you know, somebody wants him to go to school over here so you can have a better school. I think we addressed that. But I think this is what we finally came up with that I didn't have anyone from the Department Board of Education. I haven't had anyone come to me from them, so I'm assuming that it is correct. It talks about residency documentation on line 80 is customary in that school system. You see that line? Line 80. We put that in.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was because of your question about overcrowding and whatever, if like DeKalb County has a problem with overcrowding and
Well, what's customary
how you
in
do
what's
districting.
Yeah, what's customary in my county is that a probate court proceeding has to determine for guardianship for the purpose of school residency totally, and that's something that's used many, many, many times in DeKalb. So I guess what customary might imply is that DeKalb probate court the school system, I'm speculating here, the DeKalb school system, which got 100,000 children,
Mm-hmm.
shall require anybody with a power of attorney to use the probate court procedure that they use. I assume that's what it means if it's customary to DeKalb.
Right. And my school system has 175,000 kids, and I'm sure that if they had a problem with this, with the power of attorney, they would have come marching to me in the last 2 weeks.
Anything further, Ms. Oliver?
No, thank you, sir.
Anyone else have further questions of the presenter? If not, we appreciate your bringing that to us. We will have limited, if anyone else wish to address the committee on this, we'll have some limited further comments. If not, we'll close all further public input, and the bill is now in the breast of the committee. Recognize Mr. Welch for a motion.
The motion do pass, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is made, do pass, is seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Pardon me? Yeah, it's do pass by substitute LC 297104 ERS. Any further discussion? Any amendments? There being none, the chair calls for the main question, which is do pass. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am.